Welcome to Money Talks. Today's show is going to deal with your unofficial tenants. At this point, you're probably wondering, what kind of unofficial tenants could I possibly have? In many countries, your unofficial tenants are called squatters. They break into an unoccupied house, they don't pay rent, they use your utilities, they live like kings, and in most countries, the law is on their side. And if you think this is an exaggeration, go to Google and type in the word squatters. The Wikipedia definition says that squatting is the act of occupying an abandoned or unoccupied space or building, usually residential, that the squatter does not own, rent or otherwise have permission to use. Squatting is significantly more common in urban areas than rural areas, especially when urban decay occurs. According to one author, there are 1 billion squatters globally. That's about 1 in every 7 people on the planet. Yet according to a renowned academic, squatting is largely absent from policy and academic debate, is rarely conceptualized as a problem, as a symptom, or as a social or housing movement. Squatters often claim rights over the spaces they've squatted by virtue of occupation rather than ownership. In this sense, squatting is similar to, and potentially a necessary condition of, adverse possession, by which a possessor of real property without title may eventually gain legal title to the real property. From your perspective as an investor, this should be very worrying for you. In this global economic downturn, people being out of work, rising housing costs, food costs, and the growing number of foreclosures, people are being forced to live in the street. They live in boxes under bridges, in parks. They sneak into schools and libraries and hide until closing time. They use public conveniences in service stations, in stores, in public buildings to wash up. If they have job interviews or they're just walking from place to place to hand out their resumes, they use these conveniences to brush their hair, put on makeup, change their clothing, give themselves a bird bath, and make themselves presentable enough to land a job. Some of the more enterprising people find places where they can take a shower. Public beaches often have an open-air shower so that people can wash the sand off themselves. When people have nowhere to live and funds are too limited to go to the YMCA or the YWCA, they often head for these showers on public beaches to wash their hair or their clothing, even in the dead of winter. As the saying goes, desperate times call for desperate measures. Out of desperation and fear, people turn to squatting in unoccupied houses. You'll be absolutely amazed at the power that they wield, both on the internet, because of course they have their own websites on the internet and they can communicate with other squatters about potential empty properties, and in the law. These websites tell other squatters what their legal rights are. They know more about the law than you do. As a landlord, you're very vulnerable. If your investment property is not rented out immediately, these squatters take occupancy. They don't even do it stealthily by night. They're bold as brass. They can come in during the daytime and nobody can stop them. An estimated 1,000 people live in the Grand Hotel Beira in Mozambique. The Zabaleen settlement and the City of the Dead are both well-known squatter communities in Cairo. In India, in Mumbai, there are an estimated 10 to 12 million inhabitants, and 6 million of them are squatters. In England and Wales, if a squatter has lived in a property for 12 years or more, they have the legal right to own it. In fact, in central London, there were squatters who inhabited properties for many years that were ultimately worth millions of pounds. I can remember seeing a squatter on the front page of the Evening Standard, sipping champagne and smiling broadly at his acquisition of £1 million property. And because the council had allowed this to go on for over 12 years without evicting him through the courts, he was able to obtain the title to the expensive property. Squatting is rife around the world, from the US to Mexico to Brazil, Italy, Finland, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Iceland and Spain, to name but a few. So to summarise, squatting is a global issue. In the downturn economy, it's likely to increase substantially. As a landlord, your property may be vulnerable, so make sure you are aware of the laws in your own country and that you check them frequently. Don't go away. In the next part, I'll share with you some of my own experiences with squatters.